Hello. Yeah, I know. I'm a little bit late. I'm sorry. I was handling stuff behind the scenes a little bit. I'm here, though. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I apologize. I really do. I apologize. Okay, so I'm going to start with this and we're going to go from there. Okay? So, 1 second here.
Someone approaches me from that ethnic group that
Okay, now we're going to learn why that word should not be used and why this person thinks it's okay to say certain things. Yeah, I'm gonna make sure that the ignorance stops now. So let's get into it, shall we? Now I do have to fix this because I broke it earlier. Okay. Mm. There we go. The B is on screen now. Goody. Hello, Sly. Hello, Hi Guy. All right. 4 reasons why we've got to stop using ethnic to describe people of color. When you come across the word ethnic, what do you think about? Let me guess, brown people. Or if your head first goes to the foodie scene, then you're probably thinking about the food of brown people. I'm not going to take away from this article, but when I used to use ethnic food, I used to refer to it as Chinese, but my friends corrected me on that a long time ago because ethnic was wrong, but ethnic can be used for so many things, and we're going to get into that in this article. Well, we are. Hello, housewives, my stalker. Okay, then you're probably thinking about the food of brown people, and that's because ethnic is a label commonly used to describe people of color and their cultures. When we're talking about people who are of Asian, Latin, or Middle Eastern descent, we call them ethnic. And when we're looking for something other than typical American food for dinner, we say we want something ethnic. So, what about white people? Why aren't they considered ethnic? Here's the thing, an ethnic group is a category of people who identify with each other based on things like a common language, religion, ancestral location, and history. So, if you think about it, all people, including white people, are ethnic because all people identify in some way with a location, language, religion, and or history. Ethnicity is also often used interchangeably with words like race and nationality. And while those may inform someone's ethnicity, they're not strictly the same thing. Race is a social construct that groups people by their physical characteristics, such as skin color. Nationality is your status of belonging to a particular nation, whether that's by birth or naturalization. Hello, enough already. And that's true. There is a big thing going on in well, it started in the US, but it's picking up steam to take race out of social constructs, to take race out of a social setting. I'm going to dive deeper into that on another live because I know people would like to know what is going on, but yes, there is a movement to remove race from social settings, including education. For example, because I self-identify as a Filipino American, I would consider my ethnicity to be Filipino, my nationality to be American, and my race to be Asian. When a white person self-identifies as white, they're describing themselves by their race alone. Their ethnicity could be English or German, and their nationality could be American. So then what makes white people special enough to not be considered ethnic like everybody else? You guessed it. The thing that always makes white people special, white supremacy. So does that mean using ethnic to only describe people of color is racist? Yep, because the way it's used implies that whiteness is the superior standard. Therefore, white people don't need to be differentiated by their ethnicity like people of color do. Some people might think this is being overly sensitive. Why does everything have to be racist all the time? Because racism, unfortunately, is everywhere. It's in the neighborhoods we live in, the schools we get into, the movies we watch, and the water we drink. I'm talking about you, Flint. It's also in the language we use, which plays an enormous role in shaping the way we see the world and the people around us. We use words that we're used to, the way that everybody else uses it. So if you've been using the word ethnic to describe people of color, I don't do that anymore. I don't do that anymore. I haven't said that word since I was in high school. I'm an old MF right now. That doesn't necessarily make you a hateful person. It's what we're taught. It's convention. But and again, the language we use does reflect and uphold racist systems of oppression. So we should be mindful about what words we choose to say. As a Filipino American, I would be considered somebody who is ethnic. Because of this, I'm constantly reminded that I'm the other. And that means that as long as the term is used in this way, I can't be seen as normal or average. And that sucks. Not only me, but all people of color who have to experience the same marginalization day in and day out. So let's unpack this further. Here are 4 reasons why we need to stop using the word ethnic to refer specifically to people of color. Number one, it upholds the idea that white people don't have ethnicity. While having conversations about ethnicity or cultural backgrounds, I've heard many white friends awkwardly excuse themselves by saying, I'm not anything, I'm just white. Which, as we discussed, isn't true. Their families came from somewhere. They didn't just spontaneously poof into existence. White people have ethnicities. They could be Irish or Scottish or Greek or French or Swedish or Dutch, among others. I was going to inject my opinion, but I'm going to wait until after I'm done with this. They just have the white privilege of being part of the dominant group, and therefore, unlike people of color, they don't have their ethnicity rubbed in their faces all the time. That's the thing about privilege. Those that have it don't always notice it because they don't have to. Again, this idea that whiteness is the absence of ethnicity and sets white people as the norm and places them above all other people of color. 2, it lumps all sorts of cultural groups into big, vague blobs. It creates a fictional dichotomy between white people and everybody else. And this erases the vast amounts of diversity and nuance within both categories. The way people tend to use the word ethnic is to describe a crap ton of different types of people from all over the earth who have a world's worth of different experiences and intersecting identities along with them. People who are Cambodian are different from people who are Dominican and different from people who are Arab. You could argue that the phrase people of color, which I have used so liberally throughout this article, does this too. However, the difference is that people of color is used as a term of empowerment that expresses a social relationship among ethnic and racial minority groups in solidarity. It also acknowledges how the experiences, of these groups are categorically different from white dominant groups due to systems of oppression. So, people of color is often used to point out social injustices that apply to all non white folks, while ethnic people is often used to otherize them. When you simply when you simply otherize minority groups without recognizing how they're affected by systems of oppression, that's when lumping them into one big ethnic blob is harmful. Because then, by ignoring their diversity, you're deeming their unique identities and experiences as unimportant and not valuing them as real people. And you know what? The phrase white people can do the same thing. We know that there's a lot of diversity within the category labeled white, as pointed out in the last section. And that also includes histories of marginalization. People with Italian, Irish, and Jewish heritage, for example, have only recently become bunched into this idea of superior whiteness after a long history of being targeted as ethnic minorities themselves. We'll come back to that one. Because of this, some white folks who are disconnected from their cultural heritage may feel like they're missing an essential understanding about their identity and family history. And for white folks who do retain a strong sense of ethnic identity, some become annoyed or even offended when they're blended into this just plain white category that erases their ethnic background against their will. It exotifies people of color, which is number 3. Ethnic is used almost interchangeably with exotic, which is an equally problematic term. Exotic compared to what exactly? When I was a freshman in college, one of my white friends said she was jealous of my beautiful brown skin because it was so exotic. At the time, I took it as a compliment. Hey, these white people think I'm special for some reason, even though I was born and raised here in Virginia. But what I didn't realize is that while being called exotic sounded enticing and mysterious, stripped down, it only really meant one thing: foreign, which actually I wasn't. When ethnic is used in this way in the US, it positions people of color like Asian Americans and Latin Americans as perpetual foreigners who will never be seen as truly belonging in this country. Whether or not they were born here, whether or not their families have been here for generations. Calling people of color exotic, especially women, is also incredibly harmful. It positions them as objectified and sexuality beings and enables them to become targets of sexual violence. Ultimately, it's dehumanizing. Sorry. After all, exotic is most commonly used to describe fruits or animals that seem strange and unusual. And that's what you're telling people when you call them ethnic, that they are strange and unusual and not like normal, read, white humans. Number 4, it's used to position some cultural groups inferior. When people say, let's go out and eat some ethnic food, they're not talking about that high-end French restaurant downtown that adorable Italian bistro, even though French and Italian are indeed ethnicities. No, they're specifically talking about Indian food, Thai food, Ethiopian, and Mexican. Lavanya Ramanathan, a reporter for the Washington Post, says that the problem with calling immigrant food ethnic is that it's applied selectively to cuisines that seem the most foreign, often cooked by people with the brownest skin. Hey, Terry Lynn! Hey, Terry Lynn! This next part irked me, and I'm gonna just, this part irked me. This is especially problematic if you think about how ethnic cuisines are perceived to be lower than European or fusion cuisines. Diners often expect them to be dirt cheap and will even become offended if they have to pay more than $30 for a full meal. I'm sorry. Okay, I don't care what you are, okay? If you expect to pay less than $30 for any meal, there is something really wrong with you. There is something really wrong with you as a person. It doesn't matter what they are. Do you know how hard it is to work in a restaurant, making and creating dishes that are specifically made for you? Do you know how hard that is? And you're expecting to pay less than $30 for a meal? Just because just because of where you're eating at or who's running the establishment? No. If you expect to pay, I'll tell you this right now. If I owned a restaurant and you came in thinking that you could pay less than $30 for a meal, I would kick your butt out to the curb and I would ban you indefinitely. I'm just saying, it takes a lot of work to create a dish. And it does not matter where you go. If you go to a restaurant, not a fast food diner, but an actual restaurant, a specific type of restaurant, yeah, you're going to be paying the big bucks. If you want to be cheap, go to McDonald's. That's all I'm going to say. Let's continue. Hello, Lizzie. I used to think that way too. I never thought that way. Thank freaking God I never thought that way. The first time I went to what is now my absolute favorite Mexican restaurant, I looked at the menu prices and was slightly outraged. $2.50 for one taco? That's absurd. $2.50 for a taco? There is a really great Mexican restaurant not far from me. Do you want to know how much you pay for one taco there? $7.50 for one taco. And you're complaining about a $2.50 taco? Now I'll be it. I'd be it. The tacos there are great. Hey, Navy. But yeah, you're upset over $2.50 for one taco. Come here, pay $7.50 for one. Little did I know, of course, that I was about to taste the best tacos I've ever had in my life. Yeah, when you actually go to a a specific type of restaurant for a specific type of food, it's usually a lot better than what we're used to as a fast food joint. But by expecting these foods to cost next to nothing, you're not only devaluing the food itself, you're also devaluing the people who cook the food, their culinary expertise, and their cultural heritage. You're saying that they don't deserve to be paid more for what they've created just because they're ethnic. And this is tied into the way we perceive these people who we think of as being from second or third world countries. See, this one irks me too. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, there is no such thing as a second or third world country. Once again, that is a social construct created by white people to feel superior. We all started somewhere. We did. We weren't, you know what? We didn't get here overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day. Egypt wasn't built in a day. We all worked to get where we are. So this one where people describe other countries as second or third, that always irked me. And it will always irk me. We think they're poor and so their food should be cheap. I'm not suggesting that we ban the word ethnic. The problem isn't the word itself, it's a descriptor of ethnicity, which is a critical part of everyone's identities that shouldn't be ignored. The problem is in the way it's used to marginalize people of color. Yeah, Leela, you're right. It does. It does. Um, the issue isn't the word ethnic in and of itself, because even if we stopped using it, it would just be replaced by something else. Because the ideological belief around the world, around the world, word that word would still be intact. For instance, think about how world food is sometimes used interchangeably with ethnic food, even though all food is technically from the world, just like food is technically ethnic. Somebody dinged me. I don't know who dinged me. As I already mentioned, people of color is a great alternative to ethnic people. You could also be more specific about the cultural groups you're referring to, since it doesn't make sense to call a certain group of cuisines ethnic food. Just call them what they are: Vietnamese food, Belgian food, Lebanese food. I call it Italian, Chinese. Um, but but even of itself, you can't really use Asian dishes to describe everything, because every culture in Asia has different way of preparing stuff. So yeah, I know it gets confusing. Or if the situation doesn't call for a need to differentiate a group of people by their ethnicity, then just don't. Lastly, you can encourage more people to understand the issues behind how people normally use the word ethnic. Explain to others that we are all ethnic, and help break down the misconceptions around the word that upheld the idea of white superiority over people of color. By changing this habit, you might not be immediately ending racism, but you would be taking one small step towards helping people of color be seen as they should be seen, not as ethnics, but as equal human beings. Now, I've got to go back to part one here, because, yeah, part one. Is it? Yeah, okay. So part one, I kind of have to throw this in here because or was it part two? I think it was part one. Yeah, it opposes the idea that white people don't have ethnicity. Okay, um, where white people excuse themselves by saying, "I'm not anything. I'm just white." There is more than just saying that because I am a white person. Okay, I am. And I've noticed a lot of things. Now, this is not to describe every white person out there, but this does describe most white people in general. We have a tendency of losing our heritage over time. We do. We have, unlike other cultures and other diversities, which traditions are held in great value, a lot of white people do not find value in holding on to who they are or where they came from or what their ancestors did. We as white people, in a lot of sense, don't find value in traditions or culturalisms anymore. And that's really sad on my part because I would like to know where I came from. I would like to know what my ancestors did. But on the same notion, too, white people have a tendency of taking other people's traditions and beliefs and making them their own. While that is not necessarily bad, and I'm not calling it that, in a sense, some white people do have a tendency of going too far with doing that. They do. While white people do have ethnicity, over time, we literally forget where we come from and who we are as a whole because a lot of families, including my own, don't find value in things of the past. They don't find value in traditions. And that's sad. It's really sad for people like me, and I'm not the only one. There are a lot of people that when they really say, "I'm not anything, I'm just white," it's not exactly that they're, a lot of people aren't saying that they're, "I'm not anything, I'm just white." You know, it's just that a lot of white people really don't know their history anymore. They don't. A perfect example of this is when I was talking to my grandmother trying to figure out where I came from. My grandmother pretty much basically said your history started where you were born at. So basically the city I was born is my history. That's it. Whenever I asked my grandmother for information on our family, my grandmother will always say, "Our history is not important. It's in the past. Why worry about it?" And like I said, that's wrong on a multitude of levels. Because if you can disregard your own culture, then how can you also have respect for other cultures? I'm hoping I make sense here. I'm trying to play devil's advocate here without trying to offend anybody. Hey, Rebus. But this does bring us to a next part. This does bring us to another part of this as well. And talk about amongst yourselves, because I have to go find it. Okay. Okay. Now, I am not going to give this person any credit whatsoever, but I have to point this out. Okay? I do. Oh, I screwed that up. Oh, I screwed that up. Oh, boy. Okay. Let me make sure I did that correctly. Okay, good, I did.
It's about me acknowledging that I was an ignorant white woman with what I said. Okay? So stop twisting and playing this like word.
Okay. Now we're going to get into this other part here. Yay. I like this. I like this game. I like this game. Okay. Okay. Diversity expert says ignorance is not an excuse in an age of technology. She says if you have a phone, a computer, access to a library, then you have a wealth of knowledge at your fingertips. People across the country are standing up for social injustice and saying no more. If you have a phone, a computer, access to a library, then you have a wealth of knowledge at your fingertips. There is no excuse for folks today to be uneducated about our history in the United States and to be uneducated particularly about the history of racism and racist practice, said Dr. Jeffrey Ann Wilder. She is a sociologist specializing in diversity and race relations. As a former University of North Florida professor, she currently works at a national nonprofit that focuses on increasing diversity in the tech industry. Wilder says we are currently in the modern day civil rights movement. We cannot continue to ignore this. As a society, we have to continue to name it by naming the individuals who have lost their lives by naming racism, says Wilder. With a simple search on Google, you can learn about the life and death of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and more. The killings of these Black Americans and others are the reason why people are protesting. In Northeast Florida, you can dig into the local history online. You can watch a YouTube video of part of the African American Heritage Trail that takes you through historical landmarks in and around Jacksonville. Jacksonville's website has a trove of information on the local history of African Americans. It goes beyond just tapping your African American neighbor or tapping and asking your friend of color. Wilder says, do your research. She says the value of this happening in 2020 is Google. We have access to so much information. If you are looking for a structured way of learning, Wilder's friend created a 30-day racial justice challenge. Wilder wrote a book called Color Stories: Black Women and Colorism in the 21st Century. So if you really want to use ignorance as an excuse to go ahead with your racism, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. Okay? You have a phone, you have a computer, you have a library, you have access to newspapers, you have access to magazines. There is no reason to promote ignorance as an excuse to justify racist remarks, unless, one, you don't give a damn, two, you're too damn lazy, or three, you're really racist and you just don't care. Housewives. Okay. You have a wealth of knowledge, however, it's not always correct info. As a Native American, I would get in fights with my history teacher over Native American history. That is true. That is true. I would never listen to my history teacher. But at the same time, I learned how to use Google. You know, I did. The story of Pocahontas, the story of Sitting Bull. Yeah, those are stories that I actually had to Google because something in the history books was not right. And let me tell you, people, Pocahontas, the Disney movie, does not count either. Disney lied. Okay? But there is a vast knowledge of history online written by Native Americans. You just have to want to do your own research and actually do the work yourself. But there is a treasure trove. But the greatest way to experience, and I will say this too, to experience what is going on in the world is to not only I trailed my thought here. Yeah, you're right. It's not always accurate either. Yeah, Disney is. If you want to know about history in general, you should talk to the people who had family a part of it. Like I've always said, you need to go to the source. If you can't go to the source, you can research it. I can't go to the source, so I have to improvise. But if you really want to know what what Native Americans went through, go talk to one. Go talk to one. If you want to know what slavery was like, go talk to the people that had family a part of it. We can learn so much from each other if we share experiences. I'm not saying there's a one and all be all. Sorry, I'm reading the comments here. Sorry. But I think that, but like I said, I think the biggest reason for everything is that as white people, we don't know what it's like to be part of a culture anymore. We don't. And that's wrong. Hey, allegedly. But I also don't act like a person that's going to speak on behalf of everybody out there either. I don't know what it's like to be Native American. So why would I speak for a Native American? I don't know what it's like to be a person of color. Why would I speak on them? I don't know what it's like to be Italian. I ain't going to speak on an Italian. I only know what it's like to be me. But the problem is I think that not the problem. I think one of the biggest problems is that we as a society of white people need to learn that every person has a voice and every person needs to be heard. We as white people are nothing special. We're not. We aren't. Everybody needs to be heard. There are certain things that need to be removed from the social construct. A perfect example of this is me as a white person, I don't have experiences. Okay? I don't. And what I'm talking about that is I don't have a family dynamic tradition of experiences. But let's take a look at and housewives, I'm going to use you and I hope I don't offend you. But let's take a look at indigenous people of America, like housewives, who is native to this country. She can teach me so much about her traditions and her culture that will make me appreciate it more. Because once you understand their beliefs, can you understand them better? You also have to remember that a lot of our social constructs as white people has been based on hate. And where does hate come from? Hate comes from fear. Fear of something different. Fear of the unknown. Fear comes from anything and everything that is different or strange or something that we do not understand. Racism came from hate. Hate came from fear. Fear is irrational. It is irrational when it comes to an individual. It is irrational when it comes to other cultures. God did not create fear, people, but we know who created fear. We are all the same. Our experiences, however, are very different. But once we share those experiences, understand those experiences, understand each culture, and respect everybody as an individual rather than a whole, can we understand and get along better? There's a lot of things out there. There are. But part of the process is listening and ignoring certain constructs that we were taught. Oh, look at me. I'm tossing out constructs out of my vocabulary left and right, and I'm doing it on my own. I'm doing it on my own. Everybody's experiences are different. It doesn't devalue anyone else's, but it helps us all understand each other better. If you can take the steps, you might just find a whole new world out there to explore and dive into. But that also does bring us to another point of this video. And I have to find this part, so talk amongst yourselves just real quick. Okay. Now, since we're done with that, I'm going to bring up this part too. Thank you, allegedly. You didn't have to do that. I'm actually doing this because we all need to learn. Oh, yes, there are. Not one tribe is not the same as another tribe. See, that before I start this, see, housewives, I always thought every native tribe was the same until I started reading into it. Every one of them has different beliefs, different values, different ways to do things. And it's really amazing. Like, I did not know that until I started reading them. And you really, okay, so people are going to ask me, well, what made you get research or want to know more about Native Americans or, indigenous people or whatever? I was in junior high. I was in junior high when I first learned about the Trail of Tears. That story is still horrific. It is as horrific as the first day I learned about it, I should say. That is what made me learn more about that time. But by learning more about that, I learned more and more about the tribes involved, which led me to explore more and more and more. When you are reading something and something stands out and you actually take the time to listen to your curiosity, you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot. I forgot the diary. I forgot the diary of the little boy. But this little boy wrote a diary He was 7 or 8 years old. He walked the Trail of Tears. He kept a diary. He kept a diary. He wrote every day in that diary. You want to know something about that little boy? Here's something for you. He didn't survive the trip. If that doesn't give you reason to do something or to learn, I don't know what will. Or how about the fact when the Hoover Dam when Hoover Dam was being built, did you know the majority of people working on that project were Chinese? Do you know how many Chinese died on that project? What about the coal mines in Pennsylvania and around there? Do you know how many Irishmen died? Go take a look at history. Go take a look at history. History is not pretty, but it gives you an insight of why people are angry. If you cannot take the time to try to learn, or if you're at the point that you just want to say, oh, well, ignorant. Oh, I'm just ignorant. No, you're a lazy, racist piece of crap. You are a garbage of a human being. You are essentially saying that, you know, it didn't affect me, so why should I care? History affects everybody, regardless. Go, read, learn, expand, and understand. Listen to people. Now, I want to play this part because this part also brings up another little thing that I have an issue with. Okay, I have a lot of problems with this, okay, because this just proves how out of touch you really are, and we're going to get into it, okay? Listening to music does not make you racist. Teaching your German, talking to your dogs in German doesn't make you a Nazi. This is why I have a problem with white people like you. You don't really know what is going on in the world around you. You want to go ahead and say that you're white trash, you're a redneck, you're a hillbilly. You know nothing of what these terms mean or what they stand for. You don't. You are as ignorant as, you know what? I'm not going to get into it because I don't want this to derail. But you are an ignorant piece of crap. You really are. And you're sitting there with a smile on your face like, woohoo. No. You know nothing about any of the terms that you use. And God forbid that you actually ever wake up and realize what you just said. But we're going to get into it. Okay? We're going to get into it because you think you're over there being big, bad, and whatnot. No, you're a piece of vile garbage is what you are. We're going to get into it. And I'm going to show you just how how stupid you are. Not ignorant, but stupid you are. Because at this point, your stupidity is really going to a whole new level here. This stream is about education. Okay? About education. But this part literally irked me. Because you have no respect for any damn person out there. Not even to your own self. You have no respect, lady, for anybody. None. You should not even have a platform because everything that you spew is vile. But we're going to get into it. Let's get into it. Okay? Oh, I didn't share the screen. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, I didn't share the screen. Hold on here. Hold on. We'll get into this. Yeah, we'll get into this. You'll understand why I screamed.
Cracker, what? Because you can clip this out of context. Are you ready? Are you ready? I'm a white trash cracker honky motherfucker, a porch sitting bitch. Okay? All right? Did you catch that? I'm a white trash honky cracker. What did I say? Cracker motherfucking porch sitting bitch. Okay? I listen to, oh my god, heavy metal music and crazy Viking music. And that means I'm racist. I've heard it all, okay? I speak German to my dogs, so my family are Nazis. Okay. Okay. What the fuck?
Okay, like I said, that was my rant. That was my rant. That was my rant. Okay, that was my rant. Yeah. Yeah. You want to know what her idea of white trash is? Or her version of a redneck or a hillbilly? I kid you not. I kid you not. Here, I will actually go over here and I will read it to you. Okay? I cannot make this crap up. Okay? Let's see here. Where is it? It's down here further, isn't it? A little bit further. Yeah. So her reasoning for being a redneck, a hillbilly, or white trash is by going outside on her porch without shoes on, screaming at her husband. She thinks having Christmas lights up during the middle of July is enough for her to call her a hillbilly or white trash. This lady is so out of touch. She has no idea anymore of what she is talking about. Now we're going to talk into this whole part here because she needs to understand a little bit of things here, and we're all part. I'm really part of the education right now. I really am. Okay. Now I'm going to bring this up here so you can all read along with me with the BB white trash. Okay. White trash is a derogatory racial and class related slur. Just because you call yourself white trash, it's like when you call yourself. Okay, I'm going to put this out there. Please do not judge me for what I'm about to say. I know you're going to clip this and probably take it out of context, okay? But white trash is the equivalent of me calling myself a retard or special ed or a short bus rider. Even though it is directed at me, I'm still giving power to words that are derogatory, offensive, and words that should not be used. It's kind of like if I call myself a faggot. Even though I'm calling myself that word, I'm still giving an offensive, derogatory word power. Now, I have stated that, we've taken that, we as gay people have taken that word and have used it to empower, but at the same time, it's still a derogatory word. It's like, retard. You're giving these words power. Even if you call yourself that, they still have meaning. They still hurt. There are people that still have scars from when these words were used on them, years ago. But I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue. Yeah, you can call yourself trash, but you don't need to call yourself white trash. Okay? But here we go. White trash is a derogatory racial and class-related slur used in American English to refer to poor white people, especially in the rural southern United States. The label signifies a social class inside the white population, and especially a degraded standard of living. It is used as a way to separate the noble and hardworking good poor from the lazy, undisciplined, ungrateful, and disgusting bad poor. Use of the term provides for middle and upper class whites a means of distancing themselves from the poverty and powerlessness of poor whites who cannot enjoy those privileges. The term has been adopted for people living on the fringes of the social order, who are seen as dangerous because they may be criminal, unpredictable, and without respect for political, legal, or moral authority. While the term is mostly used pejoratively by urban and middle class whites as a class signifier, some white entertainers self-identify as white trash, considering it a badge of honor, and celebrate the stereotypes and social marginalization of lower class whites. In common usage, white trash overlaps in meaning with cracker, used of people in the backcountry of the southern states. Hillbilly regarding poor people from Appalachia, Okie regarding those with origins in Oklahoma, and redneck regarding rural origins, especially in the South. The primary difference is that redneck, cracker, Okie, and hillbilly emphasize that a person is poor and uneducated and comes from the backwoods with little awareness of and interaction with the modern world, while white trash and the modern term trailer trash emphasizes the person's supposed moral failings without regard to the setting of their upbringing. While the other terms suggest rural origins, white trash and trailer trash may be urban or suburban. Scholars from the late 19th to the 21st century explored generations of families who were considered disreputable, such as the Jukes family and the Kallikak family, both pseudonyms for real families. Now, here we go. Oh, I need a drink. Thank God I got me water. The expression white trash probably originated in the slang used by enslaved African Americans in the early decades of the 1800s and was quickly adopted by richer white people who used the term to stigmatize the kind of whites they considered to be inferior. Poor white trash, then, is the term for the bad poor, not the romanticized, noble, and hardworking good poor. Nancy Isenberg compiled a long list of derisive names that have been used to refer to poor whites. Yes, there is a difference between saying you're trashy and being white trash. The long names are these. The long list of names are these: waste people, offscourings, lubbers, bog trotters, rascals, rubbish, squatters, crackers, clay eaters, tuckies, mudsills, scalawags, briar hoppers, hillbillies, lowdowners. Ooh, I'm not saying that one. Ooh, I'm not. The white N word. I'm not saying that one. Nope, not even a nope. Mm-mm. But yeah, it's right there. Degenerates, white trash, rednecks, trailer trash, and swamp people. Description and causes. In the popular imagination of the mid-19th century, poor white trash were a curious breed of degenerates, gaunt, haggard people who suffered from numerous physical and social defects. They were dirty, callow, ragged, cadaverous, leathery, and emaciated, and had feeble children with distended abdomens who were wrinkled who were wrinkled and withered and looked aged beyond their physical years, so that even 10-year-olds